Saludos and salutations, Broncos Country, and welcome to another exciting episode of Broncos Talk. I'm your host, Adam Diaz, and ladies and gentlemen, we got an action-packed show for you today. We are going to talk about the unfortunate loss that happened week 2 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're also going to dive into who's to blame so far. Is it Bo Nix? Is it Sean Payton? Is it the wide receivers? Anybody under the Sean Payton coaching staff? I mean, there are so many questions and only one finger to point. We're also going to look forward at the upcoming matchup week 3 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, ladies and gentlemen, strap in, open up your beers, get the popcorn ready, because here we go with the great episode today on Broncos Talk.
Broncos talk, let's rock, feel the energy rise. From the microphone to the fans reaching the skies. Every episode a thrill and surprise. For the love of the game, we harmonize.
And welcome back in, everybody. As I stated earlier, my name is Adan Diaz. I am the owner and proprietor, I think is how you say it, of the Broncos Talk Show. As you guys can see, normally I am joined by my co-host, Ty, the fantasy guy. Unfortunately, he is unable to make it onto tonight's show, but we will carry on with him in spirit, definitely, guys. So everything's good. Just feeling a little bit under the weather tonight, so unfortunately he wasn't here. So I will be your host, and this is the face you're going to have to put up with for the next 60 plus minutes or so. So I know to some people that might be a punishment, but to others, I've turned some heads around in my day when I was younger. Maybe not now, but you know. But anyways, guys, wherever it is you guys are listening to us on audio, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe anywhere and everywhere you guys get this podcast from. First, we got to get a couple bills out of the way, of course. Audio podcast, you know, Google, iTunes, Amazon, anywhere and anywhere this podcast are. If it's in your ears, we want to know about it. So please make sure you 5-star, give great reviews. Hit me up on Twitter on /X. You can hit me up at 6 for 10 Mexican. I'm always down and happy to talk about any and all things football. For any business inquiries, you can email at broncostalk2020@gmail.com. If you're on the Spotify /Anchor app, there is an option if you'd like to be a donator to the show. Always well appreciated. Also, for those of you that don't know, we are on the Orange and Blue Network, as you saw by that really cool intro made by the boss, Johnny Baki. So please make sure you like and subscribe, share on YouTube, X, Facebook, and on all the audio podcasts, wherever this reaches. Please make sure you like and subscribe to the show. There are plenty of great shows that are currently on the network, and we have many, many more coming soon. And if you thought that's the best news of the day, man, let me tell you, we got even better news, because not only is Broncos Talk on the Orange and Blue Network, but we're also on the MHRT Network, the Mile High Roundtable. So please make sure you like and subscribe, share, comment, and anywhere it is you guys are listening to. We're actually live streaming on both networks at the same time. It is really freaking amazing. Every single Wednesday I come on and talk to you guys. I love saying that. It is really great to be back on the MHRT network. And, you know, I mean, I have to deal and hang out with Mundungus, but, you know, it could be worse. Could be a Raiders fan, you know? So I'm just kidding, man. Mundungus, you know I got love for you. But anyways, make sure you guys like and subscribe over on MHRT. Give them a like. They have plenty of great shows also on that network. And if you do, tell them your boy 610 sent you. They'll definitely appreciate it. Also, we cannot continue without mentioning our sponsor for today's show and sponsor of the network, Dubby. Dubby has great flavors for you guys to choose from. And just so you know, it was formulated to give you focus and energy with no jitters or crash. Our formula contains vitamins, amino acids, and no nootropics, including the patented Neurofactor formula. It's got no calories, no sugar, no maltodextrin, no fillers, and no artificial colors. So this is a great way to get an energy boost without getting all that, man, I don't even know what they put in energy drinks nowadays. It's been a while since I had one, but there's always like some bad side effects to that stuff. But with this, W gives you the energy that you need without any of the harmful things for your body. So if you guys need a boost and coffee's not doing it for you and you don't want to rely on other energy drinks, W is very, very, very well recommended. I have still yet to get it. It is on the way, I guarantee you. But I can already tell you guys that W is the best. So make sure you guys go out there and get your fair share of W. You will not regret it. So for those of you guys just joining in, kind of late minute, just as I stated, a little out of breath. Unfortunately, Ty is not going to be with us tonight, so it's just going to be me flying solo. If you guys have any comments or as we for the subject that we're going to talk about today, please make sure you get them out there on the comments for those watching us live stream. For those watching us after the fact on audio, you can always hit us up on either the Orange and Blue MHRT or on my own personal Twitter handle that you can see there at the bottom, and I will be more than gladly to answer them for you through social media. So, and here we have our first one of the day, Chris Farley. It says, good friend of mine is a sponsor of W as well. W is really good. I can't wait to try it for myself. And I will definitely be one of the first reviewers on this network if I'm not the only one. I know Jay had it before he showed it on one of the airs. So I can't wait to try it myself. But now that we got all that stuff out of the way, guys, let's get to what Broncos Country has been talking about for the last, 3 or 4 days. And that's just the performance of the Broncos. I have heard pretty much almost every reason under the book in terms of who to blame. Some people blame Bo Nix. Some people blame the wide receivers. The more in-depth analysts blame Sean Payton. As you guys heard, if you watched the post-game show that I did with Johnny on Sunday, I pretty much said it, and I'm pretty much going to say it going forward. The seat under Sean Payton, it's got to be getting warm. And the reason I say that, guys, is because while we were all clamoring, and I'm pretty sure a lot of us are still, dealing with having to have, dealing with Bo Nix, I knew that there'd be troubles along the way. But what I wasn't expecting, and I'm pretty sure I may not be the only one that feels like this, is just the fact that, unfortunately, it's a bigger setback than we probably took for granted. And maybe the preseason kind of gave us this illusion or this idea that, everything was going to be great. I knew that Bo Nix is going to make mistakes. He's a rookie. He's not the only rookie that's made these mistakes. However, we haven't seen that much of a progression as big as we'd like. So where we were a year ago, the Broncos were 0-2, and you guys heard, and sorry if I bumped the mic, I do that by accident. I have fat fingers. We've been in this situation before, folks. It's almost like we're repeating ourselves in a moment in time. And that's literally a year ago when we were talking about Russell Wilson coming up short against the Commanders. The Broncos, if I'm not mistaken, they were going for the 2-point conversion. I think they were going to win the game or tie it, but that was a really crappy call, by the way, because that could have gone either way. But if the Broncos offense would have played better, or they kept their foot on the pedal, because in that first half, the Broncos were leading. They looked like they were going to blow the Commanders right out the water. And then they let Sam Howell come back into that game, and it got a lot worse than it shouldn't have. It shouldn't have gotten that bad. And unfortunately, the Broncos lost that game. So back then, we were all blaming Russell Wilson. We were blaming the offense. We were just trying to make reason out of it, saying, you know what? It's Sean Payton's first year as a coach. This is kind of like a Cinderella year for him. He's got to get acclimated, try to work around Russell's strengths and stuff. And that all made sense at the time. But it was kind of like what people in Broncos country didn't really want to hear, because it's like we've heard it before. For the last 9 years since Peyton Manning rode off into the sunset, we've been kind of asking ourselves a question like, whoever the Broncos have handed the keys to hasn't lived up to those expectations. And for us, for a lot of Broncos fans, 2013 is, even though it seems like it was a long time ago, whenever we see recap videos on Broncos social media or on YouTube or on Facebook, wherever it is, it felt like it was just like yesterday. And to give you an idea, Emmanuel Sanders was at the game. He was one of the special guest players at Mile High for the season opener. And to me, like as soon as I saw him, my mind went to 2013. Wes Welker, Demaryius Thomas, God rest his soul, Emmanuel Sanders, the beginning of that amazing defense that was starting to take its form. But the offense was so great at the time that the defense was kind of like overshadowed, So it was just like, it was crazy. But today we're going to try to see if we can point a finger at where we think the blame should be right now as of 0-2. So make sure you guys get your comments in. Going to try to do them the best as I can. If you guys see me stutter or whatever, I do apologize ahead of time. I'm still trying to get the used to hanging of doing a solo podcast. Don't get me wrong. I'm just glad that I'm able to be here and talk football with you guys. And I'm just so frustrated at the same time because I don't want to see this team lose. I want to see this team play to the best of their ability, to be the team that we predicted them to be since Bo Nix got the call, if that makes any sense. But I'm going to dive right here into the comments. Christopher Earl saying, I still believe. Yes, sir. And I certainly do too. I don't think that 2 games are enough to call it a career or to make a drastic decision on Bo Nix. That doesn't mean you guys can't be upset. Let's just get that out of the way. That doesn't mean you guys can't be upset. That doesn't mean you guys can't be frustrated. You have every single right to do so. Every single right. But that's just because we love this team so much and we want them to succeed. We don't want to be losing. That's not what the Broncos are about. The thing that really pissed me off out of all this is the fact that the Broncos in most of the power rankings are ranked 30th. Just think about that for a second. The Broncos are ranked 30th. Only 2 teams most these people think are put ahead of the Broncos, and that's the Giants and the Panthers. The Giants, who have Daniel Jones, who they're paying God knows how much money to be their quarterback, and the Panthers, who and sidebar here, folks, it's just like what they're doing with Bryce Young. It sucks. It really does. I mean, I feel sorry for the guy, and he's not even a Bronco. But and this is the point I was going to make out later, but I might as well make it now before we jump back into the comments. It's just like that, and we said it. If I'm not mistaken, I think we said it in the post game show after the Broncos game. I don't remember if it was on the post game show. I had this conversation with somebody, but that's not what you want to do to a quarterback. And I think it was at the post game show. I think it was Johnny who said that. And basically, it's kind of like what they did to Zach Wilson. That comparison was made that Zach Wilson could have developed into something better, but unfortunately, the Jets pulled the plug on him, and they didn't get to see what they were. And I get it. I get why Carolina did it, because they want to win now. They don't want to be another 1-and-so team. That's why they're starting Andy Dalton. But at the same time, it's not worth it. It really isn't, because if you go back and see how much the Panthers gave up to get Bryce Young, and they're literally getting nothing. They're actually losing out more, to be honest with you. And they're trying to trade that over just to get a couple of wins. But if you look at that division, can Andy Dalton really compete with what the New Orleans Saints have right now with Clint Kubiak? Those guys are playing like lights out football. Damn near. Look what they did to the Cowboys, the Bucks. Which we're going to get to in a little bit later. Even with the Bucks as wounded as they are, they're still putting out the Baker Mayfield, still going out putting out a show. And Kirk Cousins, if you guys watch Monday Night Football, like I'm sure you did, like I did, is like a team that, they had a bad day at the office week 1, but at the end of that game, don't count Kirk Cousins out. That's what I got from that. So even with Andy Dalton, I don't think Andy Dalton can stack up to either one of those three quarterbacks. And the Panthers are probably not going to change their trajectory by a lot with Dalton. So for me, I think it's better to see what Dave Canales can do with Bryce Young in the course of a season. He only had the guy for 2 games, and he's already benching him. So any little motivation or whatever they did with Bryce from last year, it's totally shot to hell because he's going to be sitting there on the bench. I wouldn't be surprised if the Panthers try to get some collateral for him before week 8, and he could turn into another Trey Lance project or another Josh Rosen. You guys remember Josh Rosen, the guy before Kyler Murray, who was supposed to be like the franchise of the Cardinals, and he totally flamed out. And I don't even know if he's still in the freaking league. I almost want to Google it, but sorry about the rant. As you guys know, if you're new to the show, I kind of just go on a rant. Sometimes I try to stay on topic, but sometimes I just go a whole different direction. So stay with me, folks. Christopher jumps back in and says, I still think Sean should see if Joe Lombardi can call the plays better. Now, this was a topic of discussion, but I don't know what it is with head coaches who kind of see that if they do that, like they kind of feel, I don't know if they feel like it's an insult or if it's just like they don't, I don't know if it's ego. I have no idea. But up until this point, I'm not going to lie to you, I thought Joe Lombardi had a say in the calls. And I'm just finding out that it's all the Sean Payton offense. So, and this isn't the first time we've had this issue in Broncos country. I know we've had this before with who was, I think it was with Vic Fangio, but instead but it was on the defensive side of the ball. So unfortunately, if this is the case, I would really, really love to see what Joe Lombardi can do. Because the thing is, folks, if the Broncos do not right the ship, Joe Lombardi will probably be the scapegoat at the end of the season, is my hot take, in terms of them trying to figure out like, oh, well, we need to cut the fat, try to figure out where the problem's coming from. And the offensive court, we've seen it happen before, guys. What's the I think that the last time it happened was 2016, 2017. Was it with Bill Musgrave as the offensive coordinator? If I'm not mistaken, it was one of those guys. But they cut the offensive coordinator early season, mid-season. I think it was Musgrave. And I mean, it's just I don't know. But I think that they should give Joe Lombardi a shot. And if his calls work out better, then hey, let Sean Payton worry about the smaller details and let Joe Lombardi do what the Broncos are paying him to do and play some freaking offense. I mean, I just made the example for you guys. Clint Kubiak in New Orleans. All of a sudden looks like he knows. All of a sudden the Saints look like they know what they're doing. They're using Kamara to run like he's supposed to, a demon on wheels, and Derek Carr just heaving the ball and getting caught for touchdowns. I mean, Rashid Shaheed playing bonkers football right now. Crazy. Moving on to D-Rock. D-Rock saying, hello, D-Rock. Thank you so much for being a supporter of the show. He says, honestly, I don't believe Sean Payton's seat is remotely warm because he's working with a rookie. I strongly believe the release of Tim Patrick has devastated the offensive vibes. I kind of push back on this. I think it is warm. It's warm because you guys have to remember, and this is my personal opinion, feel free to counterpoint. This is the team that Sean Payton wanted. Sean Payton wanted Russell Wilson gone, and he made the owners eat up that giant cap. All right. So he said, if you want me to fix this team, I need so and so and so to happen. It's going to cost you money, but I guarantee results. So far out of 2 games, it hasn't looked like we thought it was. It's actually looking. Now I'm saying looking. I'm not saying there's not room for improvement, but so far it hasn't looked good. And I get it. Bo Nix is a rookie. He's going to make mistakes. Totally understand that. I'm not talking about the mistakes Bo's making as a rookie. I'm talking about what we haven't seen from Bo in terms of what we saw in the pros in the preseason. And those are flashes. We did get a bit of a flash in that wildcat play or whatever you want to call it, where he threw the bomb. That was beautiful. I'm pretty sure everybody in Broncos country was going bananas. And then he threw an interception into the end zone. So, unfortunately, that's a mistake. But I don't know. I just feel like Bo is kind of being held back. And I don't know if it's because Bo himself hasn't built up that confidence yet, or if he's just following whatever Sean Payton is yelling into his helmet every play. Now, the running game has been abysmal. That has to be better. That has to be better because the running game is supposed to be the counter, is supposed to be the kind of like the break when the quarterback needs a little bit another play or two to kind of figure out what the next play is. So when the running game isn't doing his job and the offensive line isn't getting those holes open, so Javante and McLaughlin and anybody else behind them is making runs and they're getting stuffed, or in worst cases losing the ball, that hurts Bo Nix too. It really does, and it's really hard for him because he has to learn how to do this stuff on the fly. Now, granted, the Seattle defense has gotten better. We talked about that. Kudos to them. The Pittsburgh Steelers defense, those front, they're gonna wreak damage. That's how the Steelers were. That was totally expected. But there are going to be games going forward where the Broncos should be the dominant team, and they have to show that on the field. You know, Broncos defense playing really good football, kept the Broncos in both of these games. It wasn't a total blowout. So you kind of have to, I don't know. Like I don't put the blame finger on Bo. I put it more on Sean Payton. And the reason I say that is because technically that's the only person I think that you can blame, because you got your way. You got the management gave you a big money contract, and you led everybody to believe that Bo Nix was the steal of the draft. You know, that they bamboozled the Vikings for McCarthy, and that they took one away from the Raiders, and they had to settle for Brock Bowers, and Bowers is starting to look like a really good tight end. He started turning around. So as much as I hate saying that, but that's just how it is. So I guess going forward, I guess we in Broncos country just want to see a better attempt in the offense, because so far all we're getting is just vibes from 2 years ago, you know, during the Nathaniel Hackett era, where it was just like the Broncos defense going out there playing great football, and then the offense just going out there and going 3 and out or interception or fumble or whatever. And it's like, it's just, even though it's not Bo's fault entirely, it's for us in Broncos country, it's just kind of like reliving a nightmare, you know? So that's just my personal opinion. Feel free to counteract on that. Christopher jumps back in saying Joe Lombardi was hired to be the next head coach of Denver after Sean Payton. Now, is that a hot take, or is that a fact? Because I don't ever remember reading anything like that. Oh, by the way, in case you guys don't follow Joe Lombardi, his father is unfortunately going through dementia. So, you know, shout out to Joe, prayers and everything because I kind of know what that feels like, having, you know, a family member go through either that or Alzheimer's. So, you know, I'm sending prayers to him, much love, and I hope he's able to find comfort soon with that. But going back to football, it's just I don't know. Like, I honestly couldn't even tell you who I'd even want to. I think it's still a little bit too early to talk about another head coach. But all I know is that a lot of people are don't agree with that point, because they already want another one, and they probably want it tomorrow. And D-Rock says, agreed, good point, but I think they realize it's a project and it takes time. Totally understandable. I totally agree with that. It does take time. The problem is that we in Broncos country are impatient AF. If that makes any sense. And I'm pretty sure it's not just people in Broncos country. I'm pretty sure it's people, just football fans all over the league. Like I said earlier, like seeing the Broncos being rated 30 out of 32 and them only being better than 2 teams, and those two teams couldn't get out of their way if they were in a paper bag. That to me as a Broncos fan, just it hurts, man. It really hurts. And if I could have my way, it kind of makes me, if I could call Bo Nix right now and be like, hey man, just throw the ball. Just throw the ball out there. And so hopefully somebody will catch it, because I really do hope that they see that in Broncos. And I hope it lights a fire under somebody's ass, because I think that's what that offense needs. Now, I will say that they are taking a step in the wrong direction. Just gonna take a sip of water here, because sometimes people say I talk too much, and sometimes I feel like I do. So, but losing Mike McGlinchey if I'm not mistaken, I think he went to IR today, matter of fact, is not good. It is definitely not good. Now, there were some right tackle options out there that the Broncos could go and get in free agency. If I'm not mistaken, the only one that probably sounded intriguing to me was it Bakhtiari? I think it was Bakhtiari. But he would have to pass a physical. So the Broncos aren't starting in the best foot right there in terms of, improving the run game with going with a backup, especially if it's somebody that they have to promote from second string, or even they have to elevate from the practice squad. So it's crazy. D-Rock also jumps in and says the team cannot win with so many penalty yards. Well, that's technically true. The laundry for some reason has always been an Achilles heel in Denver, right up there with injuries. It's like they go hand in hand. So that's always a thing that has to be cleared up. And while we're talking about penalties, it was also talked about on the Orange and Blue Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue, which comes on every Tuesday. So guys, make sure you subscribe and check them out on the Orange and Blue Network and on MHRT as well. So it's just like I have no idea what happened with PS2, but it was just I took it as a bad day at the office. Like that first half, that was a bad day at the office. And if it wasn't for the right tackle getting penalized and having those plays called back where Sutton was beating coverage and George Pickens made an unbelievable catch, it really would have been a bad day for Pastor 10. And I get it. It's to be expected. As much as I love PS2, not every game is going to be a shutout like he did against Seattle and, shut down Metcalf for most of the game. But for what you're paying him, you expect him to be better. And I'm pretty sure he is. But hopefully we can limit those, just bad days at the office where the laundry, especially coming off on him. He needs to work on that. He really needs to be better, because when this offense gets it going, and I'm pretty sure it's going to happen, calls like that can really, really put the Broncos in a bind in games where they need to play their absolute best, So D-Rock also says Denver as an artist sucks right now, but because the preseason was their first single of the album and was a banger, but track 1 and 2 of the album sucks. I've never heard that comparison made before. That's actually really cool. It's wow. I think I'm gonna have to use that analogy, D-Rock, because that's awesome. I never thought of it that way, but I mean, you could be wrong. As much, I would love to see the Broncos be like Eminem, because I love Eminem. I think he's the GOAT. That's my personal opinion. You don't have to agree with it, but if they could be like that, where every track is a banger, a banger, a banger, a banger, and hey, I'm all up for it. Jay jumps in and says, do you want the Broncos to hunker down and run the ball in 2 tight end formations, or spread it out in shotgun like Bo did in college? You know what? Unfortunately, I don't watch college football, so I can't really relegate to do what he did in college. But what I do know is that college ball and the NFL are 2 different things, so it's not the same thing. There are different rules. And that's why a lot of players, when they transition from the college to NFL, they don't make it, because the NFL is the best of the best. You're going to play against the best teams, and you're going to play against the worst teams, depending on the season and what's going on with management and players and contracts and all that jazz. So The thing that hurts me about Bo the most is the fact that I think that Franklin hasn't ascended with Bo Nix, because normally I know the comparison has been made with Brady and Gronk, even though they both basically didn't grow together around the same time. Obviously Brady came first and then Gronk came along later. But the chemistry between is a lot of people were so excited to see Franklin join the team because they're like, okay, they played him and Knicks played together in college at Oregon, and they're gonna come in and they're gonna knock it out of the park. And it's really pissing off Broncos fans because one of those wide receivers took the spot for Tim Patrick. Tim Patrick, I still love him. Kind of hurts me seeing him in a Honolulu blue uniform as a Lion. I still think he should have been a Bronco, but and it sucks that Vel wasn't active this past Sunday because he seems to be the one that kind of seems to be jiving with Bo Nix at the moment instead of, excuse me, Cortland Sutton or anybody else. Whew, almost went down the wrong way. But I hope that he gets it and he turns around, because if we can get that connection just connected again and kind of give Bo that feeling, or that reinvent the feeling, I guess you could say, as to kind of recreate what he had in Oregon, but make it better under Joe Lombardi or even a Sean Payton system, if it can work it out somehow, then I think it would be great. But running the ball, the way the Broncos line is, something I don't know. I wish I could say it was the center, because going into the season, one of the biggest complaints, or not complaints, but one of the biggest worries I had was, Cushionberry leaving the team. And for some reason, I keep thinking he went to Carolina, but no, he went to Tennessee. And maybe that alone, I love Quentin Miners and the other, and well, I mean, freaking, and Garrett Bowles. I know he's trying his absolute best. Ben Powers too, but for some reason there's a disconnect somewhere, and I don't know if you can say it starts at the center, but something's going on where that offensive line just doesn't look as good as it did, not just in the preseason, but it kind of what it was last year, you know. So something's got to give. Like, Sean Payton needs to figure out where the problem is and fix it. So, and it doesn't really help that now that the right tackle position is really at a vulnerability. So now you kind of have to scrimmage plays where if the right tackle cannot handle the pressure, do you either have to use a tight end to chip and run? Do you have to make Bo Nix kind of step into the pocket, or hopefully not scramble every drive like Russell Wilson did for no freaking reason? But I don't know. I honestly don't. Bob Skinner saying hello, Broncos Country, and saying hello to me. So, hey, Bob, how you doing, my friend? Thank you so much for joining us. I haven't seen you in a while. Really appreciate you coming in and showing your support. Thank you so much. But it's it was such a close game, and I had somebody ask me the other day, would it have been any different if Russell Wilson played instead of Justin Fields? And to be honest with you, I don't think so. I think Russell Wilson would have probably gotten a touchdown in, just for the simple fact that he knows the Broncos defense probably better than Justin Fields did, because Fields only played that defense once. And I'm pretty sure he still has nightmares of that second half in Chicago where they were up almost 3 scores, if I'm not mistaken. I was at that game. I feel like I say that every show. I was at the game. And they came back, and the defense did their part, and the offense did their part in terms of catching up and kicking it, and they came back and won. So it could have happened, and it was possible. And the fact that the Broncos defense only held the Steelers offense to just 1 score was a miracle in itself. So, I mean, it could have been worse. It really could have. But I think that the biggest issue with the Broncos offense is the running game, because as I said earlier, the running game is usually the break that gives and if the running game isn't working and the first two and you burn through your first and second down because the running game outside or inside or even a pitch isn't working and you put that pressure on your quarterback where if the conversion doesn't happen, then you have to punt, So I think that has to work out first. Is it a is it a Williams part? Is it a Williams problem? Is it a McLaughlin issue? I mean, where do you put the finger on that? Javonte Williams was just, I mean, he was such expected to have such a big year going into week one, and it's just been downhill since. He's been on every single sit-em list I've read so far today over the last 2 days. Whereas 2 weeks ago, he was on every person's start list. He was on my starting list, and he barely it wasn't that good. So unfortunately, I had to bench him. And in my league, I actually cut him because I had to make room for somebody else. And it really sucks that I had to cut Javonte because he was one of my feel good picks when I did my fantasy draft 2 months ago. So I do hope they can turn it around. I do hope they can be better though. But I think that the running game has to be better because it can help get Bo Nix out of a jam when he needs a little bit more time instead of forcing him to constantly throw the ball. But again, mistakes are going to be made, and they're going to have to do it. So, and D-Rock says, I hate to bring this up, but by the trade deadline, who's gone? You know what? I'm pretty sure I had this conversation on this network. I don't know if it was on the post game show or when it was, but I'm pretty sure I said this on this live. And I said if the Broncos have to have a fire sale because they're just playing terrible, and they want to give up, not give up, but get like high picks and really assume a rebuild season again, if this isn't already one, then if you're talking offense, you'd probably have to go with Cortland Sutton. You probably have to because there's just something going on with Dulcich. I don't know what it is, but it's just not working out. And it's actually a miracle that he's actually made it into week 3 and he doesn't have an injury designation that I've seen so far. I wouldn't be surprised if I logged in and he's like, hamstring or ankle or, what the hell. So, but Greg Dulcich might be one. If there's someone out there that wants a tight end, he's not a high pick, I don't think. And he wouldn't be against the cap, like a huge cap saver either. But it would probably be Sutton. It would probably be Sutton. Mims is only in his second year. I don't see them trading Mims. He's still trying to find his way. And, they're pretty crazy about Vel. Little Jordan Humphrey would probably get elevated from out of the practice squad and take, a spot on maybe as a wide receiver 3, hell, maybe even a 2. But that's who I think they would go on offense. Could they get something for Javonte? Maybe. I mean, maybe with a better offensive line, Javonte can look like the running back that we thought he'd be in Denver. But I think that they would probably get more out of if they traded McLaughlin because McLaughlin has more upside because he's like more of a speedy running back. Javonte is more of a power back running back. But that'd be on offense. On defense, man, I want to say DJ Jones, but DJ Jones, since he came to Denver, he really hasn't been. I don't know. I felt he was a better player when he was a Niner, but then again, the Niners have such a great squad right now. And I really hate to say this because I said it before and I got so much flack. And I'm pretty sure it was with Johnny, but Zach Allen would probably be the one that if the Broncos went out and put him out there, that they would probably get a really high pick for him. And I really hate saying that because I love Zach Allen. I think he's great. I love his tenacity. I love the fact that he wants to be out there every single freaking drive, and he wants this team to win. He really does. And you could see it in him. There was a drive where you could see he was out of breath. He was tired, and he could have easily went and subbed in, but that man was out there and he wanted to get his team the ball back. And oh, he thought I was going to say Zach Wilson. Although I did read somewhere that Zach Wilson might be on the move. There might be a team that might want Zach Wilson. So if he gets traded before the deadline for maybe a fourth, fifth pick, maybe I don't think anything higher than that. But like I said, I hope I'm wrong. But you guys have to understand that the one thing that we've seen since the Broncos were bought by the Waltons is that they're not afraid to spend money and they're not afraid to make the moves that we don't agree with, especially if it means saving George Payton's keister. We saw what he did with Von Miller. Nobody ever thought that the Broncos would trade Von Miller. Not me, not in a million years. I thought he was going to really retire a Bronco. And when he got traded to the Rams, that was just like, it was one of the worst days of my life as a Broncos fan. That's that wasn't Super Bowl 48, mind you, but it was just bad. And it warms my heart when I see pictures of Von and he's rocking it. Hell, he was wearing a shirt of Patrick Surtain the other day, and the man looked amazing. And it's like, and I always say to myself, why did we let him go? And he's starting to kind of look like maybe not so much the Von of old, but he's starting to be a threat out there for that Bills defense. So far the last 2 weeks, we've heard his name mentioned more since he was a Ram when they won the Super Bowl. So it's crazy. I love Von. I can't wait for him to take his place in Canton one day. But it's like, unfortunately, every good thing must last. So back to my original point, the Waltons are going to do whatever it takes if they feel it's going to make the team better. Like I said, trading Von, it was more of a George Payton thing, but it had to be done because it brought in picks. The Waltons themselves getting rid of Nathaniel Hackett and bringing in Jerry Roseburg, who I thought was going to be the next head coach of the Broncos. I never actually thought that they would trade a draft pick for the Sean Payton's contract and bring him in, especially how I saw Sean Payton sitting on that couch across from Colin Cowherd, and Cowherd and him criticizing literally every play that Nathaniel Hackett was making, and I could do this better and blah blah blah. Where it's kind of like, well, put up or shut up, bro. And now that's where Sean Payton is, and I'm pretty sure. I'm surprised that Nathaniel Hackett hasn't been invited back, and him criticizing Sean Payton for the plays. But and D-Rock jumping in here and he's saying, we're going back to Florida for week 3. Here we go. That's exactly right, man. We're going back to Florida for the first, not the first, against shoot, I almost forgot his name for some reason. Baker Mayfield. Now, as you guys will know, the last time the Broncos faced off against Baker Mayfield was when he had just gotten to the Rams after he was cut from the Panthers. And what we thought was going to be a walk in the park for the Broncos turned into that Christmas massacre. I mean, he used the Broncos to put his name out there to say, hey, Jack, I am back. I am not washed. I still got it. So that's what I'm afraid to see. And that was without like big name weapons either. It wasn't like this was, I think he's had Cup, if I'm not mistaken. Puka wasn't there yet. But even so, I mean, he made chicken crap out of, I forget how that verbiage goes, but you guys know what I mean. So going into this game, I know that the Bucs, the Bucs D line is they're hurt. I heard Vita Vea is injured. I don't know if he's on IR, but I don't think he's going to play. And there's another player on that D line that's not playing good. So this normally 2 weeks ago we'd say would be a perfect opportunity for the offensive line and the running game to get it going and get their stuff together and make some noise. And hopefully that's what happens. I really do. But as you guys saw, Baker Mayfield went into Detroit last week and he took it to the Lions. and he got his revenge of sort, from losing to them in the divisional round. And it was a pretty close game, but pretty much you can't count them out, is what I'm trying to say. If the Broncos are going to win this game, uh, I think Riley Moss is going to have his work cut out for him. He might have a bad day at the office because, PS2, as great as he is, he can't guard both Godwin and Evans at the same time. He can only take one out of the equation. So that's going to leave a lot of people are predicting that Godwin's going to have a big game because Mike Evans will probably be shadowed by PS2. And if it's the other way around, then Mike Evans might give Riley Moss a run for his money. So either way, one of those wide receivers is probably due for a big game. And I hope I'm wrong because the Broncos defense played really good against Seattle, even though they kind of got punched in the mouth, the second half, and they gave up a touchdown to Charbonnet and a running touchdown to Geno Smith. So, and D-Rock saying, so we see Wallace as cornerback 2 this week. Maybe. I don't know. I know Jay out there is hoping for Damari Mathis to come back. I swear, I feel like we have to mention Damari Mathis at least once every show, whether it's this one or the pregame, the postgame, wherever it is. Like, I feel we have to mention him. I'm not that big high on Damari Mathis, to be honest with you. I don't know what Jay sees in him, but I guess he's his biggest fan. But a lot of people have also called this a trap game for the Bucs because, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to discredit anything from Tampa Bay, but if the Cowboys game was anything, it's kind of tell you that it's any given Sunday. And the first loss for this Bucs team is probably going to come when they least expect it. And that's pretty much for any team going in 2-0 is because it gets harder. It gets harder to kind of, the further you go in, you start seeing how other teams are playing. You have to start taking injuries into consideration and things of that sort. Home field advantage, playing as the away team, the road team. Look, again, point I made earlier, look at the Falcons coming back and beating the Eagles in their own house at the very last minute. So going back to our list that me and that Ty made earlier, I actually have the Bucs lose, or the Bucs. I actually have the Broncos lose this game, and so does Ty. And both of us are 0-2 currently at the moment. So if we're both right, then the Broncos are going to go 0-3 into week 4, and that's not going to be good, man. That's not going to be good for anybody. The Broncos have to win this game, and this is one of the few times that I hope I'm wrong, because I would gladly cross that out and put a win there in the win column. And the Broncos defense can be the team to do it, to give Baker a bad day at the office and force him to play out of his comfort zone. Because I think that game against when he was with the Rams, I think that the Broncos were already a beaten up team going into that game. And they just got punched even harder in the mouth that day. And it was just, like I said, it was a massacre. And Baker built his comeback out of that game, because it was one of the most talked about games that entire week, if I'm not mistaken. So this is kind of a bit of a revenge game, I think you could say, for the Broncos in terms of, coming back and beating. If the Broncos win this game, it is going to be the talk of the town, because they will make it an example to say, hey, we might be down, but we are not out of it. And it is especially important. Words are hard. It is especially important for them to win, because if the Broncos go 0-3, then we're already talking about, let's be honest, folks. This team is not a Super Bowl team. So they're not going to the Super Bowl, unfortunately. Hopefully they prove me wrong on that. Wishful early birthday wish thinking. they could still be a playoff team because they're not technical. As long as you're not technically mathematically eliminated, you still got a shot, right? But they're looking at this point, if they did make the playoffs because they made some, miraculous turnaround like last season, then they might not make it past the first round. But hell, making it back to the playoffs after what, since 2015 would be an accomplishment in itself. And it would totally, and while that loss would hurt, it would totally help build to looking into a better future for 2025 in terms of what the Broncos can improve upon in the draft and free agency and all that stuff. Not to mention that they're going to get back more cap money from the Russell Wilson contract. They'd only have to deal with paying him out for one more year. But it wouldn't be as bad as 2024. Bob Skinner says we're the underdogs, pretty much, and the Broncos are probably going to be the underdogs in almost every single game going forward, except for maybe one, and that's probably going to be the Panthers game, which I'm going to be at next month. So whether it's Sam Darnold, whether it's Andy Dalton, or they decide to put Bryce Young back there, I think the Panthers are going to be in a worse spot than the Broncos are by that time. So that's probably the only game where the Broncos are not going to be the underdog. And I don't really know anything about underdogs or over and under and all that mess because math is hard. So, but I do know that that's one word you're going to hear a lot going forward. Broncos country is just basically Denver being an underdog against the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Jets, the Ravens, who are also 0-2. But basically, going into week 4, if the Broncos are 0-3, it's going to hit the panic mode everywhere. And we're probably going to have this conversation again next week because everybody's going to talk about what D-Rock just said. Like, is it time for a fire sale? Who do we blame now? Bo Nix looks bad. And you kind of have to be careful with this, with media, especially media outside of Broncos country, because at least Broncos country is trying to right the ship in terms of getting people to kind of get off that disbelief that Bo Nix is a bust, which I don't know how Broncos fans in general can say that 2 weeks in, when Caleb Williams literally got mauled by that Houston defense on Sunday Night Football, and their offensive line was really bad. So, and he's the number 1 pick. You would think that they would hold him to a higher standard than Bo Nix or Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels, he's coming along. He's trying to hold his own, doing what he can in Washington, and he's got a really tough test coming up this week against the Bengals. So, unfortunately for Bo Nix, the opponents he does beat, his first win, I'm pretty sure it's probably going to be against a team that's probably not like the best team out there. And I wouldn't be surprised if people dumb it down. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. If it kind of like what happened to Chicago. I made this point to my cousin week 1, where, don't get me wrong, he's a huge Bears fan, and he was at that game, and he was so ecstatic about Caleb getting his first win against the Titans. I wasn't trying to rain on his parade, but I said, hey, man, he didn't get in the red zone, and he only scored 2 points off on a 2-point conversion. Like, don't get me wrong, the Bears defense is good, but it's kind of like we're both on the same boat, technically. Maybe the Bears are on a worse boat in terms of their offensive line. But when the defense cannot get you or cannot get a lucky play, if Will Levis doesn't throw that ball on that drive and he goes down and the Titans punt the ball, could you sit here and honestly tell me that Caleb Williams can get a scoring drive in and win that and come back and beat the Titans when he wasn't able to do it all game? Like, no, I don't think so. I would bet money on that. I really would. But he got bailed out by his defense. The defense did their job. And that's great. I'm glad the Bears won. However, not every quarterback is going to do that exact same thing and just lob the ball into midair. And as we saw against Houston, it didn't happen. The Bears they played good football. They kept CJ Stroud from running them out of town. But Caleb Williams, just 2 interceptions on the day, and he wasn't able to get the win when the defense wasn't able to get an interception, or they did get a fumble return, but that's just because the running back fumbled it. It wasn't because CJ Stroud threw an interception. Um, so it's just kind of like the Broncos are in that same boat. If like look, for example, week 1, very first play from Geno Smith, threw a pick, put the Broncos in the red zone. And unfortunately, the Broncos weren't able to score in terms of a touchdown. They had to settle for 3. So it was just kind of like growing pains. I guess you could probably say is the theme of probably this season. It's just that we have to have patience. I said it last week. You guys have to breathe. And it's probably something I'm going to be saying for the next 16 weeks or so. You just have to breathe, man. Again, I'm not saying don't be mad, don't be angry, don't be frustrated when the Broncos lose, because losing sucks. And we as Broncos fans, we don't want to see our teams lose. D-Rock jumping back in, says the NFL should hold the Duper Bowl. 2 worst teams plays each other before the Super Bowl, and the losing team is crowned the worst. I've heard that idea pitched around, but instead of that, they say that whoever the winner of that game would get like the first round pick or something like that to make it interesting. So that way players would take it, more serious than the actual Pro Bowl game of years past, where it was just like them playing for bragging rights. There was nothing really on the line. But I don't know, like a little mini main event before the actual Super Bowl. I guess. I mean, if you want to work that into, like, they do the Pro Bowl games now. So if you want to work that into that, I'd be down for it. And Bob Skinner says, "Where's the Broncos' pride? Damn, we're the Lions." I wouldn't say we're the Lions because the Lions have a really good offense. So their defense is not bad. It's kind of like it's mediocre, I would say at best. But hey, Aiden Hutchinson just had a 5-sack game against the Bucs, and the Lions barely lost that game. So if Aiden Hutchinson can sack Baker Mayfield 5 times, Jonathan Cooper and our pass rush should have a field day at the office. They really should. So hopefully, like I said, the offense comes and turns it around. What am I expecting out of this week? I guess I'm trying to think of what my co-host Ty would think of if he were here. Basically, I think we need to see something from the running game. I really do. We need to see something that goes more than 5 yards. It has been abysmal. So Sean Payton, Joe, if he has to relieve control to Joe Lombardi, let's see what Joe Lombardi can scheme up with. Because like this current system, it's not working. It's not working, Sean, and something needs to happen. And I know you don't want to swallow your pride or your ego by letting Joe make the calls, but if that's what you need to do to save some face and put a W on the board and start giving more confidence to your rookie, then that's what the freak you have to do. And you got to do it, man. And don't wait until the Broncos are mathematically eliminated in 2 months or whatever, and then all of a sudden start to see, well, let's throw Zach Wilson if he's still on the team by then, or to see to what did he say last year? Oh, to provide a spark. A spark. You want the backup to go in there and provide a spark, and when it's pretty meaningless. What for? Like that to me didn't make any damn sense. It was just the Broncos trying to divert everybody's attention from the whole Russell media circus, and the pain of having to see Russ sitting there in his all uniform, wanting to go out there and play, knowing his time as a Bronco was up, but they were going out there and just watching Stidham just go out there and barely beat a Chargers team that was already beaten beyond belief in itself, and then going out and just like wetting the bed against the Raiders week 18. a game which I was at as well. So I didn't see no damn spark from Stidham. I thought I was, especially when it was a game that didn't matter to either one of those teams. But it was like some of the most conservative offensive football I've seen in Denver in a long time. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the only touchdown from that game was, I think, the Jerry Jeudy one before they shipped him off to Cleveland. And Jerry Jeudy last game as a Brown looked pretty damn good. I heard his name called more times in that one game than I did all of last season, if I'm being honest. So, and it made me eat a little bit of crow, because I was the one of the people that said that Jerry Jeudy wasn't going to flourish in Cleveland. I said he was overpaid. I said he was going to suck, and so far, the Browns got their first win. Yeah, it was against Jacksonville, who isn't the best, but it's like, I mean, can you blame me? D-Rock jumping back in. He's saying, shout out my kidneys and liver because what I think is coming. No, did he? Only liquor will make me feel good. You know what? Liquor is a nice substitute. Don't get me wrong. I like liquor just as much as the next person. However, when I want to relieve, if I'm really pissed off and I really want to relieve some stress out, like I have a variety of video games I play on either my PS5, on the PC where I'm streaming from now. And I just go that way. I think my liver is thankful that I'm not an alcoholic. I'm more of a social drinker. Don't get me wrong. I love a good bottle of Corona every now and then, but I don't resort to getting super tipsy or drunk or whatever. So, but whatever it is that you guys in Broncos country need to do to relieve the stress and just kind of get over the pain, as long as it's in a safe way of sorts, hey, go for it. But I mean, but I have to warn you, if liquor is your go-to, then you might have to stock up, folks, because it is only week 3. We are in for a really, really long freaking season, and I don't know where it's going to go from here. But I can tell you that it's not going in the direction I thought it would be 2 weeks ago, when we were sitting here having the same conversation. And I can only hope that the changes to this offense are coming. I hope that Sean Payton, while we're on the topic, I think I saw something. I don't know if it was an actual article or not, but supposedly somebody said that Sean Payton blamed Cortland Sutton for the loss last week. Like, the hell was that about? Like, I don't get it either. But I wouldn't go. I don't know. I hope it was a fake article. But it's just like, we want to see changes. And I guess it's just me and maybe other people in Broncos country that don't want to wait until week 4, week 5. What we cannot happen, folks, is we cannot have what happened last year, week 3. Because week 3 was when they went to Miami. So, and this year, compared to where Miami was a year ago, totally different situations. By the way, shout out to Tua Tagovailoa. I know they talked about this yesterday. It was the very first topic they talked about with Glenn and Mundungus on the 5280 podcast, which I'm free to come and guest host one day, by the way, guys. Feel free to reach out to my agent. I'm just kidding. But seriously, I really do hope that he takes his health into consideration first before anything. I understand football is important. I love football, and I'm pretty sure Tua loves football and he loves the game. But I hope that the medical advice he gets, if it's telling him that he needs to step aside and, give up football so he can live a prolonged life, I really do hope he takes that decision. Because right now he's on IR and concussion protocol and all that. And I'm pretty sure he's going to be seeing doctors for the next month or so before a final decision is made of him coming back. I just hope he takes the best medical advice and he makes the best decision, but his health comes first. And that goes for any player in the NFL, regardless of if they're Broncos or not, because no player should have to sacrifice their health physically or mentally for football. So it's hopefully he makes the best decision. I hope he recovers, and I hope it's all for the best for him going forward. But um, that's just a small reminder for you folks that while it's easy for us to sit and judge from our couches, from our bar stools, from wherever it is, nowhere near, we have to remember that these guys are players and they put themselves out there on the line every single day for our enjoyment, and not just because they're getting paid to a lot of money, but just for the simple fact that they're the best of the best, supposedly, allegedly, because I know some people will say different, but um, it just health comes first. It really does. So, especially for you guys out there, if you're ever struggling mentally, reach out to somebody, talk to somebody. There are hotlines, reach out to friends. Just always remember you're not alone. All right. Always reach out and talk to somebody. Get the help that you need before anything else. But going back to the topic about Tampa, I think that the Broncos can win this game. Definitely. And I'm changing my pick, even though I can't technically change it, but I'm changing it now just for the simple fact that I wasn't expecting us to be 0-2 at this point. But I think that this would be a great turnaround game for the Broncos. And if they can get a win out of Tampa, it would make such good momentum going into week 4, because week 4 is the Jets. And tomorrow the Jets are facing the Patriots on Thursday Night Football. So the Jets defense is kind of looking kind of sus, if I'm not mistaken. They should have blown out the Titans this past Sunday, and the Titans kind of held in there for a good portion of that game. So, and Aaron Rodgers is not looking like the Aaron Rodgers of like he was in Green Bay. Yeah, he's still, making his plays or whatever, but it hasn't been lights off. So that's another game that the Broncos can really go out there and win, So, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself on that regard. But the keys to winning this game, and these are just my personal opinions, mind you. I know we're running a little bit long, folks, so bear with me. On the offensive side, the running game has to get going. If the Bucks D line is really banged up, got to take advantage of it. Got to make the best of it. Bo Nix, I hope, comes in with a little bit more confidence and just a little bit more intensity. And I hope he's learning from his mistakes watching film, because the road after, I want to say, after the Jets is only going to get harder, because he hasn't even played, the Raiders yet. Once he hasn't played Kansas City yet. Once was really going to be a test for this team, and and even the Chargers. Whoever thought the Chargers were going to be 2-0 at this point, so they're not looking like they're going to be an easy out. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to eat some crow about all the things I said about Harbaugh, but I'm saving that for until I see what happens after that game. But Broncos country, if I can leave you with just one thing before we head out of here, it's just don't give up on this team. Don't lose hope. The hardest thing about being a fan for a team that's struggling is not being a fan for only the good. And to give you a perfect example, I can imagine how many Patriots fans after Tom Brady left, like how many fans that they lost that were only fans because of Tom Brady over 20 years or so, that are probably not even fans of New England anymore. They're probably Bucks fans because he went to Tampa Bay, or they're probably fans of other teams because of other quarterbacks that they like, not being the fan of the offense that they originally started with, So I guess that's what I'm trying to hammer for you guys is you can't be a fan of the Broncos only during the good times. And for some people say that the Broncos maybe have hit rock bottom. I don't think they've hit rock bottom yet, but if they do going forward, to quote something that Stephen A said, which is very rare nowadays, basically the good thing about hitting rock bottom is you can't go any lower than that. You can only go back up. So if this is going to be a rock bottom season for the Broncos, then eventually things are going to get better soon. How soon? I don't know. that's that's for the future and Sean Payton, I guess, to decide. But however, keep rooting for this team. Again, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to feel a lot of things. But what you cannot do is you cannot give up on this team when they're down, because when things start going our way and we start to be a formidable team once again, you can't come back running in and saying you were here since day one. It doesn't work like that. And I, for one, cannot respect you. Even if you rock the orange and blue like the rest of us, if you're not rocking it until your last breath from the first day you became a fan, then are you really a fan? Like, you got to ask yourself that. So that's just going out there for me. But guys, thank you so much for joining us today. I know we went a little bit long. I do apologize. I never knew I could talk this long without barely breathing. I did run out of breath a couple times, but hey, I'm getting old. But guys, thank you guys so much. To kind of end things out for you guys, please make sure you like and subscribe wherever it is you guys are listening to us after the fact. Please, 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 5-star reviews anywhere and anywhere is always appreciated. Google, Anchor, all those good places. I always forget them, I swear. I'm gonna write it down one day. But again, if you're watching us on the Orange and Blue Network, please make sure to like and subscribe, comment, and give us a review. Comment, like, subscribe everywhere you guys see on the Orange and Blue Networks. We have a lot of great shows coming up for you guys. Also, this is a simulcast show network, so we're also transmitting on the MHRT network. So please make sure you go like and subscribe for them. Comment. Please let them know that you guys are here for the long run, because they need your support. The Broncos need your support. And as always, I always forget to mention too, please continue to support all forms of Broncos media, not just on podcasts. There are plenty of great writers out there that write for the Broncos. Shout out to my good friend Lindsay Bebo, who writes great columns about the Broncos. Go check her work out. You can follow her on Twitter/X as well. For any business inquiries, you can email at broncostalk2020@gmail.com. Ladies and gentlemen, sorry for talking your ear off so much. I hope you enjoyed today's show. I have been your host, Adan Diaz. And ladies and gentlemen, this has been Broncos Talk on the Orange and Blue Network in partnership with MHRT. As always, have a good night, good day, wherever it is you're listening to us. And as always, go Broncos. Let's ride.